Madison Keys did not just find form at Eastbourne, she found it at the exact moment Wimbledon pressure started to rise. This video is about whether Keys can carry that late grass court momentum into Wimbledon and why her Eastbourne run changed the conversation right before the draw became dangerous. Right before Wimbledon, when everyone starts looking for favorites, threats, and warning signs, Keys stepped onto the grass and reminded the field why her name still matters. The doubt machine had been ready with the same old label, talented but hard to trust, and Eastbourne put that label under pressure fast. 4 weeks, the simple story around Keys almost wrote itself because the power was obvious, the danger was obvious, and the questions were obvious too. Eastbourne changed that, and the timing made it impossible to ignore. Official WTA tournament coverage followed Keys through the event, and by June 26th and 27th, she had moved into the decisive stages of one of the last major grass tune-ups before Wimbledon. That matters because Eastbourne is not some random stop hiding in the middle of the season. It is the final serious test before players walk through the gates at the All England club. A week like this can expose a player or sharpen one. For Keys, it sharpened the story. Eastbourne is where players search for rhythm, test their footwork, and find out whether their grass game can survive real pressure. Keys used that stage to build the one thing every Wimbledon contender wants before the first ball is struck, and that thing is momentum. This run was never just about one tournament. It was about timing, confidence, and the sudden feeling that Keys might be arriving at Wimbledon with the right weapons already firing. Grass has always offered her a clear path when her game clicks. The big first serve can steal points, the heavy forehand can end rallies early, and the clean ball striking can take time away before an opponent settles into the match. When that style misses, it can look rushed. When it lands, opponents start playing uphill from the opening game. Eastbourne gave the evidence in plain sight. Keys did not have to talk her way into confidence because she built it on court, point by point, match by match, until the old doubts began sounding weaker than the scorelines. Just Women's Sports reported that Keys beat Jessica Bouzas Maneiro 6-0, 6-1 in only 53 minutes, using deep ground strokes and sharp placement to control the match. 53 minutes is not a grind, it is a warning shot. A result like that does more than move a player forward in the draw because it sends a message across the locker room. The timing is there, the legs still look fresh, and the ball is coming off the strings cleanly. That is when a tune-up becomes something else. It starts to feel like a threat. Keys did not drift toward Wimbledon looking uncertain or rusty, because Eastbourne gave her match rhythm at the perfect time. That matters on grass, where hesitation can cost a set before a player has even settled into the surface. What happened next made the run harder to dismiss. Keys kept moving through Eastbourne and into the decisive rounds, and Last Word on Tennis previewed her final against Tatjana Maria by noting that Keys had dropped only 14 games in 7 sets, with Petra Marcinko retiring after 1 set in the semifinal. 14 games in 7 sets tells a clean story. That number does not sound like luck, and it does not sound like a player barely escaping trouble. It sounds like control, which is the exact word that has followed Keys for the wrong reason at different points in her career. The question has never been whether she owns the weapons, because serious tennis people already know how dangerous her serve and forehand can be. The real question has always been whether she can keep those weapons organized long enough across a major draw. Eastbourne answered that question for 1 week, and right before Wimbledon, even a 1-week answer can change everything. Grass rewards first strikes, quick holds, and players who can steal time from the other side of the net. That description fits Keys when she is locked in, because her best tennis does not ask permission before taking over. The doubt machine wants to shrink Eastbourne into a small warm-up event. The problem is that the calendar makes that argument look thin. This was not some faraway result with no connection to the next big stage. This was grass, days before Wimbledon, with Keys stacking wins and sharpening patterns that translate directly to the All England club. Before this week, the question sounded simple, because people wanted to know whether Keys could arrive with enough grass court rhythm to be taken seriously. Eastbourne forced a better question onto the table, which is whether the rest of the draw can absorb the damage if this version of Keys shows up at Wimbledon. That is a much more uncomfortable question. It gives her run real weight. Wimbledon does not offer much time to figure things out, because the surface is fast, The margins are thin, and one loose service game can flip the whole feeling of a match. A player who enters guessing is already behind. Keys is not guessing right now. Eastbourne gave her answers about the serve, the timing on low balls, the first step on grass, and the confidence to see the ball early. Those answers matter because Keys has not just been winning matches, she has been winning in a way that fits Wimbledon. Fast starts, clean holds, shorter matches, and baseline pressure form the kind of pattern that can travel well from Eastbourne to London. That is not clay court survival dressed up as grass court form. It is grass court danger. Her win over Bouzas Maneiro showed the first layer because Keys finished quickly and saved energy for the rounds that followed. Instead of letting a lower-ranked opponent turn the match into a problem, she shut the door before the match could become messy. The deeper run showed the next layer. Keys kept stacking results as the week became heavier, which is exactly how momentum turns from a highlight into evidence. That is where the pressure changes shape. Once a player gets hot before a slam, she stops being just another dangerous name in the draw and becomes someone every opponent has to study more carefully. Service patterns get watched. The forehand gets measured. Every loose patch becomes something opponents try to attack. Wimbledon will bring that test fast, and Keys now has to protect the rhythm she built at Eastbourne when the stage gets louder. Carrying a tune-up run into a major is never automatic, but the point is that she has given herself the right problem to have. Keys has raised expectations right before the biggest grass tournament in tennis. That is the price of momentum, because once a player looks dangerous, the draw starts treating her that way. Can she keep the same clean timing when center court pressure arrives? And can she handle opponents who no longer see her as a quiet outsider? The drama sits right there, because Eastbourne did not remove the pressure, it made the stakes sharper. Keys is not some unknown player getting one surprise week on grass. Just Women's Sports noted that she had already won Eastbourne in 2014 and 2023, which means Devonshire Park is not a strange place in her career. That history changes the reading of this run. It does not feel random, because the surface in the tournament already connect to what she has done before. Eastbourne has been part of her story, and now it may become the launch point for her Wimbledon story. The gap between the two events is so small that the feeling barely has time to cool. A player who catches fire at Eastbourne can carry that confidence straight into the opening rounds at Wimbledon. The body remembers the movement, the serve remembers the targets, and opponents remember the damage too. That is why this late surge has changed the picture. Keys has not proven that Wimbledon belongs to her, but she has proven that ignoring her would be foolish. The bigger fight now is not only Keys against the field, because she is also fighting the old label that has followed her around. Dangerous but unreliable, powerful but loose, brilliant but unpredictable. Those words always seem ready whenever her name enters a major discussion. Eastbourne has punched holes in that label. Tournament pages documented her advancement, match reports showed the scorelines, previews placed her in the final stages, and the numbers showed she was not giving away games in bunches. The reality is simple. A player cannot be dismissed as merely unpredictable when she is producing one of the cleanest grass court weeks right before Wimbledon. That is not hype, because form is the only currency that matters when a Grand Slam is about to begin. Keys now has it, and she found it on the exact surface where her game can become most dangerous. The doubt machine can try to dismiss the run, but the timing makes that difficult. This was not February, and it was not a random indoor week with no connection to the next major. This was Eastbourne on grass right before Wimbledon. The link is direct. That is the reason the conversation shifted so quickly. Before Eastbourne, Keys may have sat behind the main favorites as a dangerous but uncertain name. After Eastbourne, she looks like the player nobody wants early. That change matters because Grand Slam draws are not only about rankings, they are about matchups, surfaces, and who can hurt you. Before you settle in, Keys can punish a slow start. If a favorite opens nervously, her forehand can take the racket out of their hand before the match finds a rhythm. If a returner gives her short balls, she can crush them. If a server misses too many first serves, Keys can step inside the baseline and turn a neutral rally into immediate trouble. Grass makes that skill set even more Threatening, because points often end before opponents get a chance to solve the problem. Sometimes the answer is already past them. At Wimbledon, that kind of pressure can split a section of a draw wide open. The women's field is unpredictable, but that does not mean it is random, because confidence can become a real weapon. Very quickly, one player finds rhythm, one favorite tightens up, one section loosens, and suddenly the shape of the tournament changes. Eastbourne has pushed Keys toward that lane, and Wimbledon will decide whether she can stay there. That is where the story becomes more tense. Momentum can lift a player, but it can also expose them. A player peaking right before a slam always faces the same brutal problem, which is whether the timing is perfect or whether too much energy has already been spent. Keys now has to handle that line carefully. Eastbourne can sharpen a player, but deep runs also demand matches. Finals bring pressure, and trophy chances require emotional and physical fuel. The result is a narrow path, and Keys has to walk it without letting the run become a weight. She needs to finish Eastbourne strongly, without leaving too much behind. She also needs to use the confidence without letting the expectation tighten her swing. That is difficult, but Keys has one advantage that matters. She is not trying to invent a new identity 1 week before Wimbledon. Her formula is already clear. Serve big, step in, strike first, keep the ball deep, and refuse to let opponents drag her into slow, nervous tennis. Eastbourne proved that formula is alive. When that formula is alive on grass, her ceiling rises fast. The Maria matchup added another useful test. Tatjana Maria is not a simple grass opponent because her slice's pace changes, and awkward ball patterns force players to create power from uncomfortable positions. Last Word on Tennis noted that Maria had beaten Keys before at Queen's Club, where Keys struggled with that slicing style. That detail matters because it turned the Eastbourne final picture into more than a power test. Against a player like Maria, Keys cannot win by swinging harder at every ball. She has to stay patient, bend lower, accept awkward rallies, and choose the right moment to attack. If Keys handles that kind of problem, the Wimbledon argument becomes stronger. Wimbledon brings all sorts of uncomfortable styles, from big servers to slice players to net rushers to flat hitters who break rhythm. A clean Eastbourne finish would show more than ball speed. It would show problem-solving on grass, and that is where Keys becomes far more dangerous. The version of Keys that can overpower opponents and still solve awkward matchups is not just a dark horse. That version is a real threat. Dimers listed Keys as the projected favorite over Maria and gave her a 76% chance in their model. That number is not a trophy, and it is not a promise, but it shows how strongly the prediction leaned toward Keys in the Eastbourne final picture. Again, the timing is what gives the number meaning. This is happening right before Wimbledon, not after the opportunity has passed. The image almost writes itself, with Madison Keys celebrating on grass, Eastbourne on one side and the Wimbledon gates on the other. That is where her career stands in this moment. One foot sits in a successful grass court, weak, and the other stands at the entrance to the biggest grass stage in tennis. Between those two images sits the issue that now defines the story. Keys has to carry the momentum. 3 parts will decide whether she can. The first part is her serve, because if Keys serves well at Wimbledon, she protects herself from long, draining matches and forces opponents to play from behind. That matters more on grass than almost anywhere else. The second part is her return position. Passive return games will not be enough against the best opponents, so Keys has to make servers feel pressure even when they land decent deliveries. The third part is shot selection, and this is where the whole run can swing. Her forehand is a weapon, but even the biggest weapon needs the right target. If she goes for too much too early, opponents get escape routes. If she builds points with control and attacks at the right moment, they run out of places to hide. Eastbourne suggests that balance is improving. That is the best sign because the power was never the real question. Control has always been the question, and her Eastbourne numbers have started answering it. Short matches, few games, dropped, deep progress, and grass rhythm all point in the same direction. The doubt machine can keep shouting about unpredictability, but the results are starting to push back. Every round made that wall a little higher. Wimbledon, though, is ruthless. It does not care how good a player looked the week before, and it does not protect momentum unless that momentum survives the first real punch. That makes the opening rounds critical. For Keys, a fast start would make the whole draw feel her presence, while an early stumble would invite the old questions back into the room. That knife edge makes the story worth watching. Keys is not walking into Wimbledon as a quiet question anymore. She is walking in with fresh grass. Evidence. She is bringing a tournament run that landed at the perfect time, and she owns the kind of weapon set that can turn one hot week into something bigger. Now the burden shifts toward everyone else. The favorites have to avoid her, the draw has to absorb her, and the doubters have to prove Eastbourne meant nothing. That will not be easy, because Eastbourne did mean something. It showed Keys finding rhythm when the calendar demanded it, and it answered the grass court question before Wimbledon even began. Her name now carries more weight in the draw than it did a week ago. The road to Wimbledon just became more dangerous for anyone standing across the net from her. The final answer is still coming. Keys still has to finish the job, move from Eastbourne confidence to Wimbledon execution, and prove that one strong grass run can become a Grand Slam push. The picture has changed. The timing could not be better. The evidence is no longer quiet, and the momentum is real. Madison Keys did not just arrive before Wimbledon, she arrived with a warning. The doubt machine thought it could bury her under the same old questions, but Eastbourne forced those questions to answer for themselves.